already past our ignition phase. Now we're into a growth phase. Now, as we watch the video, a couple things to point out. First of all, notice there's digital lines going through the flames. There's digital lines through the flames. Why is that? Why is that? Some of you know. It has to do with the camera of choice, right? The camera can't digitize the light fast enough, but there's a message there. And the message is this simple, all right? The flame, the chemical reaction, that uninhibited chemical reaction we call combustion, is actually very turbulent. It's random, violent, without order, not predictable, happens extraordinarily fast. Well, its rate of light emission, we know that's one of the byproducts of combustion, is light. The rate of light emission is greater than the camera can handle. And in other words, I use a cheap-ass camera. Actually, it's just a little tiny Radio Shack security fisheye camera. It's like the size of a hockey puck is all. And it's sitting on the floor looking at this. So we're in our initial growth phase. Now, there's something important to point out here. Even though I have digital lines in the flames off this burning recliner in the corner, watch the flames as they touch the ceiling. The digital line. I mean, there's no digital lines on the ceiling flames. Why? Good, it's slowing down the light, right? In other words, the ceiling, the box itself is absorbing energy, right? And in doing so, it takes those wild, crazy, turbulent flames and smooths them out, right? It's taking away their heat energy. In other words, we're going from turbulent flow, and the opposite of that would be laminar flow. Now, laminar is a weird word. We don't use it every day. Like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, "Why do the clouds look laminar today?" It's a strange word. You could say smooth, you could say straight line air current, or whatever. But we've basically taken turbulent flame and made it go smooth, or laminar. And that's the power of the box, of the compartment itself, absorbing heat. We actually learned this in 9th grade. Heat seeks cold. Cold doesn't seek heat. Heat seeks cold, right? And air by itself is a pretty lousy conductor of that. But solid surfaces, flames touching a solid surface, or for that matter, smoke, that's a pretty good heat sink. And it'll help pull energy off that smoke and calm it down. That's a very important understanding thing. Why? Because the box can only do that for so long. It can only absorb so much heat. And if it can't absorb any more heat, what's going to happen next? It starts reflecting heat. If it's reflecting heat, that's going to cause a lot of expansion of the heat and takes that superheated layer off the ceiling, drives it right down to the floor. Well, we know if we have thermal balance and a boundary layer in the room, we might have 1100 degrees at the top of the ceiling, and we might only have 105 at the floor, right? Until that layer gets forced down due to that radiant energy, right? And the box's inability to contain that heat anymore, right? And the next thing you know, we have flashover. There we have it. So, now, as that happens, a couple other phases could introduce themselves. Now, as we watch this thing, I think it's going to be about the 525, 530 mark. You can actually see signs that the box is not absorbing heat. Why? Because all kinds of things start off gassing or pyrolyzing. So we're getting some reflective energy throughout the building now. We get a turbulent wave at the ceiling. That heat level comes down to the floor, but there's so many fuels that we packed into this room, and they all start off-gassing to the point that we basically choke back the fire. The fire, in essence, has gone out, right? Pardon the loose language. But really, it's become what is now phrased ventilation limited. We now have ventilation limited fire. It wants to grow. Hell, in this case, it wants to flash over, but it can't. It doesn't have any air, right? And because actually puts the room in positive pressure, with so much positive pressure due to volume packing that we pushed out the air tract that was feeding the fire. We had a beautiful air tract, a tunnel of air feeding the fire, but there's so much positive pressure now in the room that we push that out. And this is what's happening in our compartmentalized fires, in just everyday homes, let alone businesses. So now we have a ventilation limited fire. It wants to flash, but it can't. What's going to make it flash? Air. Where's it going to get air? From you, right? When you open a door or whatever else. Now, it could be something innocent too. I'm not saying you're at fault for making this flash open. We got to take care of it. We got to do business, all right? We have some options available to us tactically, but it could be something innocent that gives it air. It could be that a window breaks out on its own, a door doesn't burn through at the top, or any other myriad things that can happen. So, or it could be that the smoke leaving the building, in this case the front door is wide open to this house, the smoke leaving the building, right, mixes with outside air, it's super hot, the outside air quenches the temperature of that. But we know heat seeks cold, so we have a heat flow path to the outdoors. That heat flow path, after it breaks apart in air and is no longer too rich, ventilation limited, and it mixes with air, and if any of the gases in that smoke are above their self-ignition temperature, what will happen? They'll ignite outdoors, or what we call vent point ignition. In yesteryear, we called it auto exposure, right? So we have outdoors vent point ignition, and that can burn off a lot of people in a short amount of time, and then you eventually get a burn back to this room. So where's the flame wave coming from that'll complete the flash over? From the door. Now, put your firefighter hat on. If I send 2 firefighters in for an aggressive interior fire attack into zero-vis smoke, and I have a ventilation limited fire, where's the flame wave coming from that could harm them? From behind them, right? Do we teach that to people? Do we teach that to people? I don't know, right? We probably should be teaching them, right? Or anytime we go into zero visibility smoke, maybe it's a pretty good idea to do what? Cool as you go. Cool as you go. So that you quench some of that smoke. You actually do smoke or box cooling on your way in. And yes, you heard it here. Dave Dotson did say you can open the nozzle before you get to the fire. You can do that now, right? If you have people left on your fire department that say don't do that, right? I'm just going to say right now, that's kind of old school. That's way old school. Today's explosive smoke environment is an environment where you can't allow that to happen. So here we have this ventilation limited fire, right? And watch the direction of flames when I turn this back on. It happens at 6:02. Now remember, this camera is like a hockey puck sitting on the floor, the entry to the room. It is no more than 2 inches tall. Happens at 6:02. We're approaching that 5-minute and 25-second mark. That's where the box is done absorbing heat. You'll notice other things starting to off-gas. Off-gas is just slang for hydrolysis. Get some radiant ignition of other fuels. We get a turbulent wave at the ceiling. Heat wave comes down to the ground. Floor level fuels start off-gassing. So many things off-gas so quick that we go into a ventilation limited phase. We push out the air tract. Now we're just looking for the air. Heat flow path goes outdoors, finds the air, mixes, ignites outside, and does a burn back into the room. And destroys my $28 Radio Shack camera. So, understand that reading smoke is a process, volume, velocity, density, color, compared to the box of the weather, make a judgment about rate of change, better or worse, seconds or minutes. And we know that today's modern fire is 6 phases. Ignition phase, initial growth phase, ventilation limited phase, an explosive growth phase, where the fire grows significantly because of air, right? It wanted to flash over, but it couldn't. Smoke wanted to ignite, but it couldn't, right? And then we get to that fully developed phase, and then eventually our fuels will burn out and we go into a decay phase. So we have a 6-phased fire, right? Now maybe the language is a little different than you've heard from other people. Like, I know a guy who has just helped me tremendously, Dan Majkowski, calls kind of that right after ventilation limited phase. He's been calling it the flashover phase, right? I like explosive growth phase because it could be flashover of a room, for sure, but it could be all the smoke in the building ignites, which is actually technically more of a flame over, right, in the way that I was taught. And we've all learned different language for maybe saying the same kinds of things. I'm not saying he's right or I'm right, I'm not saying any of that. I just call it explosive growth phase, right? And we have the fully developed phase and decay phase. So if we understand how to read smoke, and we understand the phases of fire, now it makes sense that we've got to start putting together all the pieces to read smoke. And we already said that smoke has multiple attributes. So as we watch this video, right, start kind of categorizing, if you will, volume, velocity, density, color. Now let's start with the most obvious. Everybody saw the fire, but we know this isn't a reading flame class. Actually, it was a reading flame class we'd already be done. Pretty short. It is what it is. Smoke coming off the flames, without a doubt, has the most velocity. But go down the list. Volume, for that, it looks like a moderate volume to me. That box is full, but it's mostly full of flames, right? Its velocity is turbulent. Very fast, agitated. Its density, it's got kind of a dense core, but you can start to see light through the rest of it. So I'm going to call it moderate density. And then our color, black. Okay, but this smoke over here is different. Smoke coming out this gutter rail, if you will. So let's just look at this smoke right here just for a second. I'll run the video. Coming back to that, ooh, that's way different. Volume, much lower. Velocity, slow and smooth. It's got that laminar flow to it. All right, density, thins out pretty quick. It's not that thick. And then color. I think it's kind of like a hay straw color to it, like tan, right? It's not really white, it's not really black, and it's not gray. It almost got a brownish or a tan tint to it, right? So that's different. And then over here, we're right back to black. Then look at this smoke right here. What's different about it? Well, it's kind of much lighter than the rest of the smoke. And it looks defined like out of an opening of some kind. Ooh, and it's intermittent. So what can we do with the differences in volume, velocity, density, color? Well, we all know where the fire is. But we can start looking at these differences and say, this is not coming out of a window or a door, it's coming out the gutter rail. Maybe we're starting to fill up the attic with smoke. We did have the one small little dark, higher velocity flow here. That's probably where our front door is. Makes sense because that's where the firefighters are. And then way distal over here on the other side where we saw that smoke, that's far away, right? And all of our volume, velocity, density, colors lined up to what's the obvious here. Right? Now let's make a judgment about rate of